And now to our first conversation. Well, we have new data out from the National Bureau of Statistics. Shows that Nigeria's trade for the first quarter of 2024 see that 31.81 trillion, that was the value for the whole quarter. And imports see 12.64 trillion as for imports in the first quarter of 2024, representing an increase of about 39.65%. See exports there exceeding imports, 19.16 trillion. And the trade balance there, that's a surplus, 6.52 trillion. We know economists like this kind of data. Normally that should translate to better economy and stronger currency. But let's drill down on these numbers. Joining us now is Dr. Bamidele Ayemibo, is the MD, lead consultant, 3T Impacts Consulting Limited. Joining me via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. I think you might have to unmute. I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear anything.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. I hear you now. So finally, Nigeria's export have exceeded imports. We've been wanting this for the longest time now. That's for the first quarter of 2024. How is this data being received?
With some mixed feeling. Mixed feeling because we need it to be not just exceed, but far exceed, so us to be able to have much more FX coming in to be able to ease the challenge that we're currently facing in the FX market. But it's a good news. We hope that this should continue to the level that it begin to impact on the exchange rate, particularly for Naira to dollar in Nigeria.
So what would you say drove this recent move here, seeing exports more than imports according to this trade data? What do you think is the major proponents of this rise we see in exports?
Different sectors actually, from crude oil that was increased, both QQ increase, Q on Q and Y on Y, year on year, and quarter on quarter increase for both manufacturing sector, agri sector. Although we have a lot more with crude oil and agri, some over 100%, in some cases over 200%. Now, what's painful also is the fact that we're still facing the challenge we've always spoken about, the challenge that has to do with the fact that we're depending so much on oil, on crude and raw materials. So we have a lot of agri, from sesame to cocoa to cashew, and then of course crude oil and gas contributing significantly to this, including minerals actually, solid minerals contributing significantly to this. Manufacturing also contributes, but manufacturing competition is a lot smaller when you compare to other. Manufacturing is about 14%. Quarter-on-quarter increase, whereas if you look at agri is over 100%, and of course solid mineral is over 70%.
All right, so normally when exports exceed imports in an economy, that should be a plus for the local currency, but we're seeing some kind of stability with the Naira. But do you expect more strengthening in the FX market with this?
If this continue and the import demand plateau or begin to decline, then I expect to see appreciation of Naira in the FX market. But now, let me tell you something about the trend for export in Nigeria. The Q1, Q2 are usually high because of the dry season. That is when a lot of agri is being exported, and solid minerals also contribute because there's no rain. So the agri are just being harvested. So we just have harvest of agri. Now, after the harvest of agri, then we have also the mineral being able to mine because the mines are not flooded. So Q4, but more importantly, Q1, Q2 to a very large extent as a result of this. So if we see this trend going up in Q3, Q4, and it continue to increase, then and that of import plateau or decline, which is not the case now, we should begin to see a lot of impact of this in the FX market. And then government effort also, because as it is right now, I can't say there is apart from crude, I can't say there's a serious government effort on the non-oil, because the non-oil is still about 10%, according to this report. It's still about 10%, 9.2% actually. So I've not seen a significant effort, as in programs, policies of the federal government to be able to ensure that this continue. So this now I would say it's because of the effort of the private sector, or maybe because of the interest of people in generating forests, not because of any serious effort on the part of government in terms of policy direction to encourage non-oil export growth.
And definitely, we're talking about import substitution at this time. We're trying to promote that for the longest time. But in your opinion, have the hurdles for exports been reduced so far?
Hurdles? We need to look at them holistically. If we look at the logistics part, in terms of issues at the port clearance, that has been reduced to a large extent because clearing and shipment now, the time it takes, at least in the last 2 shipments I've done as an exporter, I think is a lot better. What I think we've not seen is logistics cost of moving the goods to the destination, because of the high cost of diesel, because of the bad road, and the fact that the rail is not yet very, very efficient in being able to move a number of these goods to the port. And secondly is financing. I mean, with the MPR and the rate we are seeing in MPR and the increase in the cost of production is making, and I was talking to a banker last week and he said a lot of their exporters are slowing down now in being getting funding because the cost of borrowing has gone up, and that is affecting seriously the profitability of the business, and that is making them to slow down. So we need to, there's need for improvement there. I think Nexim Bank can help in this regard. Nexim is able to give a cheaper source of funding. The only challenge with Nexim is that Nexim request or requirement is as good as the private sector. So it's not helping a lot of businesses that could have been able to do shipment very well if they're able to get loan from Nexim. So I think Nexim can step in here, maybe supported by CBN, to be able to ensure that even though they can't get a lot from the private sector, they are able to get a lot from the developmental institution and export credit agency like Nexim Bank.
Right, and definitely we've seen, devaluation of the Naira, and definitely devaluation of any currency makes imports more expensive. So should we call this a bright spot for Naira devaluation? Is this sustainable?
No, I mean, the devaluation is as a result of the fact that we're not generating enough forex. If government, that's why I'm concerned about government effort. Even developed countries support exporter by giving them incentive. I mean, incentive they get on time, not like the extra grant that you wait for 3-4 years, like the type that the last administration of CBN was doing, in which if you export this quarter, by next quarter you get some support from government to encourage export. Those are the things we are not seeing. So if we don't see that happening, we might not be able to sustain this growth, because when there is a growth and you can't tie that growth to a particular effort being made by the government or policy direction of government, it's like it's a fluke. If this is going to be sustained, then we must be able to trace it to effort being made by the government to encourage a lot of investment in this sector.
All right, let's look at the top countries we traded with in the first quarter. We see for exports, we see France taking the lead there, has about 11% more than other countries on that list. We also see Spain coming in second for exports, then the Netherlands 8.85% third. And for imports, since we're getting most of our imports from China, that was for the first quarter, then India. It's always been China, right? So
yes, every time more than 20 to 25%, sometimes up to 30% from China.
Right, and so looking at this, and we're trying to kind of reduce demand for US dollar at this time. We're trying to get our inflows, getting more inflows of dollars. But looking at China as our top trade partner, what do you think we should be doing with this data, in a way to solve our currency issues? I know we had some kind of direct swap with the yuan at some point, but since they are a major import partner, what do you think we should be doing to, put less pressure on the Naira at this time?
We need to be doing two things: reduce demand, increase supply. Reduce demand, increase supply. Now, if you look at the different ways that many countries receive generate forex coming into the economy. You have free foreign direct investment, you have foreign portfolio investment, you have trading goods, you have trading services and remittances. We don't have control over remittances, we don't have control over foreign direct investment, we don't have control over foreign portfolio investment. Individuals outside are going to deem us worthy of their investment. But we have control over trade in goods and trade in services. So we need to drive up trade in goods in particular. Now, with the policy being made by the government, which is necessary because of the inflation, to drive down inflation, I have not seen a lot being done on the fiscal side to support manufacturer in such a, particularly exporter, who will be able to increase their productive capacity and increase how much their production in order to be able to generate more effects. So I'm expecting the government to look at, okay, what are the major items of export, manufactured goods that are Nigeria export, and be able to support individuals, companies producing those products, to be able to support the export of those products to grow. And I'm looking at products that can drive the volume, that can move the needle, and in favor of Naira, strengthening Naira. Those are the efforts we are not seeing on the part of the government, and I think the president really needs to do something about this. You know, there is this thing about body language. The body language of the president right now is not showing that there's a serious interest to grow non-oil export.
All right, so with inflation food inflation at over 40% at this time, we've seen the federal government thinking of removing, import duties on some items like food and other, pharmaceuticals. How do you see this move?
Oh, yes. I was expecting this to have come on a lot earlier. At some point, importers were complaining that every time the rate goes up, the customs will adjust their rate, and that is increasing. And so, on one hand, we are talking about inflation and the fact that food inflation is a major contributor to the inflation or to the basket, but not much effort is being made in this regard. So, for me, this is a very important policy, commendable, that the government is looking in this direction, that drugs, food, and I think it should go beyond this. I think it should include raw materials that is used by the manufacturers to produce food, like wheat or any major raw material that is being imported that is being used by manufacturers to be able to produce food that we're buying and consuming locally, should also be included beyond the food and drug and all other things that have been added to it. But I think it's a good decision, right in the right direction, which I think should contribute to some extent reducing the food inflation contribution to the general inflation in the country.
All right, definitely. The battle against inflation here continues. We'll see how far the government goes with this move. I think it's for about 6 months. That's a proposal. We'll see if they can do it longer and also analyze the risks of that. Thank you so much for coming on, Dr. Bamidele Yemibo, the MD, 3T Impex Consulting Limited. It was great having your perspective today.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll head straight to the markets. Just stay with us.